My accidental startup journey began with a Google search and a microwave. Back in late 2019, I was working a boring job in corporate communications. The pay was okay, the benefits were solid, but every day felt like a slow drip of soul evaporation. I wasn't particularly unhappy, just unfulfilled. I'd get home, microwave something half-decent, scroll through Reddit or YouTube, and promise myself I'd apply to cooler jobs tomorrow. The usual. One night, while reheating some sad-looking enchiladas, my microwave made this awful grinding noise and gave up entirely. I cursed it, Googled best microwaves under $100, and fell into this weird rabbit hole of appliance reviews. Half the sites looked like they were made in 2003, and the other half were just bloated with ads and affiliate links. I thought, surely I could build a better site than this. The idea stuck with me. I had dabbled in web design back in college and remembered just enough to be dangerous. So, the next weekend, I bought a cheap domain, heatcheckappliances.com, threw up a basic WordPress site, and wrote a review of the top 5 budget microwaves. It was mostly just me paraphrasing Amazon reviews and adding some personal commentary. I didn't expect much from it. I just wanted a side project that didn't involve Netflix. But I kept writing. Toasters, coffee makers, air fryers, anything small, electric, and kitchen-wide. I'd test a few products myself if they were cheap enough or already in my apartment. Every article took hours, but it was strangely satisfying. By January 2020, I had maybe 30 reviews posted and was getting around 20 unique visitors a day, most of whom I assumed were bots or my mom. Then COVID hit. Suddenly, everyone was cooking at home. Site traffic started creeping up. First 50 visitors a day, then 200, then 600. I remember the first time I made $20 from Amazon affiliate links. I called my girlfriend and made her toast with the exact toaster someone had just bought through my site. Encouraged, I doubled down. I learned some real SEO, redesigned the site to look more legit, and started outsourcing some of the reviews to freelancers. I paid $50 an article, which felt expensive at the time, but it freed me up to focus on growth. I also realized people didn't just want reviews, they wanted comparisons. So I made Microwave A versus Microwave B articles, and they performed absurdly well on Google. By the end of 2020, the site was pulling in around 100K visitors a month and earning between $3,000 and $5,000, depending on the season. That was more than my day job. I had this surreal moment in December where I was scheduling a Zoom meeting with my boss while watching my affiliate dashboard refresh like a slot machine. I quit in January 2021. Going full-time was terrifying. I had never run a real business before. But I told myself, if I could make $5,000 a month sitting in my boxers reviewing blenders, there had to be more upside. So I started looking at the broader home improvement niche and realized kitchen appliances were just the tip of the iceberg. I launched a second site, toolturf.com, focused on power tools and DIY gear. This time, I knew the playbook: SEO first, fast site, clean design, honest reviews. I even hired a guy named Sam from a Facebook group who was a former contractor and loved writing. His reviews on cordless drills were better than anything on the first page of Google, and they started ranking fast. Then something weird happened. Companies started reaching out to me. Small appliance brands, mostly ones I'd never heard of, began offering me free products, then actual money, to include them in my rankings. At first, I was flattered. Then I realized I needed to draw a line. I created a policy. I'd disclose all sponsored posts, no pay-for-play on rankings, and I'd only work with brands I genuinely liked. It earned me trust. And with that trust, my email list grew, my YouTube channel started getting traction, I eventually hired someone to help with videos, and I even launched a digital product, a home appliance buying guide for $19.99. I figured no one would buy it. I was wrong. It brought in around $2,000 per month with zero ad spend. By mid-2022, between both sites, YouTube, affiliates, and the guide, I was making over $20,000 per month. Then I got the offer. A mid-sized media company that owned a bunch of niche sites reached out and said they loved HeatCheck appliances. They wanted to acquire it. Full buyout, 6 figures, NDA, the whole deal. I almost didn't respond, but curiosity got the best of me. After a few months of negotiation, I sold HeatCheck appliances for $420,000. I kept tool turf and reinvested some of the money into a new brand focused on sustainable home living, Greendwell. I now run both with a small team of 5. We do honest product reviews, DIY content, and sell a few courses on energy-efficient upgrades. Looking back, it still feels surreal that a broken microwave led me here. I never raised a dime, never went to business school, and never had some grand vision. I just found a corner of the internet that sucked and tried to make it suck less. If you're reading this hoping for that perfect startup idea, stop. Just find something annoying, something broken, something that bugs you even a little bit. Try to fix it, even if only for yourself. You might accidentally fix it for thousands of others too. Also, buy a good microwave. Trust me. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. A year ago, I quit my job to start a niche candle business and accidentally built something way bigger and weirder than I ever expected. Let me set the scene. I, 33 was working a soul-numbing middle management job in a logistics company. Think endless spreadsheets, meetings that could have been emails, and performance reviews that felt like hostage negotiations. I wasn't miserable, but I wasn't happy either. I was just existing. My wife had this hobby of making candles. Nothing fancy, just soy wax, essential oils, mason jars. She'd give them to friends, and everyone seemed to love them. One night, after a particularly rough day, I came home, smelled one of her cinnamon latte candles, and said, half joking, I could sell this **T. She laughed. I didn't. That was in October 2022. By December, I had a basic Shopify store, a few test scents, and a dumb name, Wicked Intentions. The gimmick was that each candle had a mildly inappropriate name, like Smells Like Regret, Bourbon plus Leather, or Dead Inside, Lavender plus Eucalyptus. The labels had sarcastic little blurbs like, perfect for pretending you've got your life together. I thought it was funny. Apparently, so did TikTok. One of my posts, just me showing off a candle while ranting about corporate life, hit 1.2 million views in a week. I went from 14 orders to 800 in 4 days. We stayed up all night pouring candles like some bootleg Breaking Bad operation, minus the crime and plus the Etsy vibes. Here's the thing no one tells you. Going viral feels amazing for like 5 minutes. Then it becomes a logistical nightmare. I had no inventory system, no process, no employees, and no idea what I was doing. My garage looked like a wax-covered war zone. We ran out of jars, then wicks, then labels. I pissed off the USPS by showing up daily with garbage bags full of boxes. One of my customers got a candle with no label and emailed me. Hey, I love the mystery, but what is this scent? I had no clue, but people kept ordering. So I kept making. By March, I quit my job. Scary as hell. I made $11,000 in January, $17,000 in February, and $23,000 in March. Not profit, revenue. Profit was closer to just enough to not panic. Still, it was more exciting than anything I'd ever done behind a desk. Fast forward to summer. I hired my cousin part-time to help pack boxes. We upgraded from the garage to a small warehouse I found through a friend, basically a storage unit with electricity. I invested in a wax melter that wasn't from Amazon and learned how to actually source supplies in bulk. I went to my first craft fair and got annihilated by a 60-year-old woman selling beeswax candles shaped like cats. Humbling, but it taught me I needed to know my real audience. Online trolls with credit cards. That fall, I tried to get into wholesale. Thought I could sell to little boutiques. Turns out, retailers want consistency, not chaos. I got reamed out by a buyer for delivering Satan's latte in a box that reeked of patchouli and had packing peanuts made from popcorn. That one was on me. But here's where it gets weird. Around October, I got a DM on Instagram from a guy claiming to be a buyer for a subscription box company. He wanted 5,000 units of a custom candle for their holiday box. At first I thought it was a scam, but I checked the company. Legit. Big. Like, influencer it everywhere big. I asked for a 50% deposit, and they paid it. Just like that. I freaked out, cried a little, and then realized I had zero idea how to make 5,000 of anything. The next month was hell. We worked 12-hour days. My cousin brought in his girlfriend. My wife quit her job to help full-time. We hired 2 high schoolers to wick jars for $15 per hour under the table. I built a labeling jig out of Legos. My skin smelled like vanilla and regret for weeks. But we did it. They loved the candles. I made $48,000 from that order. That month alone did more revenue than my entire last quarter. I took a breath for the first time in 6 months and thought, maybe I'm not a total idiot. Then came Q1 of this year. Sales plummeted. No holiday rush. No viral TikToks. I panicked again. Thought it was all over. But instead of spiraling, I started building systems. I set up a proper inventory tracker. I hired a part-time bookkeeper. We redid the website. I paid someone on Fiverr to make our branding look less like I built it in MS Paint. I stopped trying to go viral and started building an email list. Now we're doing around $25,000 per month. Profit margins are better. We've got 4 core scents, rotating limited editions, and just landed a deal with a novelty gift chain to stock in 30 locations. Still small, still chaotic, but real. Biggest lessons? 1. Viral is not a business model. Systems are. 2. Humor is a moat. People come for the laughs, stay for the quality. 3. Your job probably isn't as safe as you think, and your dreams aren't as risky as they feel. 4. There's no shame in duct taping your way forward, as long as you're moving. I still don't know if this will be my forever thing, but I wake up excited, even when I'm tired and the wax machine is leaking again. And that's more than I ever felt pushing spreadsheets. So yeah, accidentally started a candle empire by being sarcastic online. 10 out of 10 would recommend. It all started with a coffee and a mistake. Not some grand idea or a VC pitch, but an honest-to-God mistake. I was 29, 3 years into a marketing manager job I hated, in a city I tolerated, living paycheck to paycheck despite what my LinkedIn said. One morning, I spilled coffee on a vendor contract I was supposed to review before a meeting. The paper warped and smudged the fine print beyond readability. Out of pure frustration, I thought, why the hell is this still on paper? That thought stuck with me. For context, the company I worked for dealt with tons of vendor contracts, small businesses, freelancers, big suppliers. Every time a contract had to be reviewed or signed, it got printed, annotated with a pin, rescanned, and emailed around. No one ever knew who had the latest version. Stuff fell through the cracks constantly. So I started thinking, what if I could build a tool that simplified this for SMBs? Something that wasn't DocuSign-level enterprise software, but something more intuitive. Think Google Docs meets contract workflow. I knew nothing about software development beyond some Python from college, but I couldn't let it go. I brought it up to my roommate, Dylan, who was a back-end engineer at a fintech startup. He kind of shrugged and said, honestly, you could probably hack that together in Flask with a Postgres backend. Simple text collaboration plus versioning, basic signature layer, permissions logic. The hard part is the UI. I pitched him. Let's build it. Nights and weekends. If it goes nowhere, whatever, we'll learn something. He agreed. We called it Snapdraft. The idea was that users could upload or create contracts, edit collaboratively, track changes, and then send them for e-signature. Dylan did the backend and DevOps. I did frontend with help from a freelancer I found on Upwork, and I handled everything else: UX, copywriting, branding, talking to users, trying to scrape together early interest. We got a basic MVP in 3 months. It was rough, like 1997 GeoCities rough, but it technically worked. I posted in a few subreddits, emailed former coworkers, even cold met a few freelancers and consultants on LinkedIn. Hey, we're building a tool to make contract workflows easier. Want to try it out? The first person to actually use it was a wedding photographer in Ohio. I still remember her email. Is it secure? My clients are picky. I bullshitted just enough to reassure her. We did have SSL, but security wasn't exactly airtight. She used it for 2 client contracts, then referred a friend, then another. Within 6 weeks, we had 47 users. No revenue, but real humans using it. That was enough to convince Dylan we should take a bigger swing. I left my job, cashed out half my 401k, yes, the penalty hurt, and focused full-time on Snapdraft. Dylan stayed at his job, but nights/weekends turned into serious commitment. We decided we needed to charge something, if only to validate this wasn't a hobby project. We added a $9 per month plan. Simple pricing. No free tier. Usage dropped instantly by 40%, but the remaining users stuck. And we got our first payment. It was $9. I took a screenshot. I still have it saved in my phone. I started obsessively doing customer interviews. I learned that our tool helped people avoid confusion about final contract versions, that they loved the comment threads, that e-signature was useful, but the killer feature was actually the audit trail, who did what, when. So we leaned in, added detailed audit logs, custom branding. We also added Zapier integrations so users could pipe signed contracts into their CRM or storage solutions. Dylan rewrote half the backend to scale better. We hit $1,000 MRR in month 6. Still small, but enough to feel real. Around this time, a startup newsletter picked us up. Then Product Hunt. We didn't even post it ourselves, someone else submitted it. We got 2,000 signups in a week. Our servers melted. Dylan didn't sleep for 48 hours. We onboard users manually, one by one. Support was just me with a Gmail and a Notion doc. But it worked. We crossed $10,000 MRR in month 11. That's when the seed investors started sniffing around. I had no idea how to talk to VCs, but I took calls anyway. Most didn't get it. Too niche, they said. Too many e-signature tools already. But one guy, Tom from a tiny fund in Denver, saw the vision. He said, "Look, you're not competing with Adobe or DocuSign. You're competing with chaos. This is a clarity product." That line stayed with me. We raised $250,000. Small by startup standards, but it gave us breathing room. Hired a proper designer. Hired another engineer. Paid off some of Dylan's debt. Took our first salaries, $3,000 per month each. By year 2, Snapdraft had 5,000 paying users. Not viral, not hypergrowth, but sticky as hell. Churn was under 3%. We'd get customer emails saying things like, "This saved me from getting screwed by a client," or, "I finally don't dread sending out contracts." We leaned harder into the niche, independent consultants, creative agencies, solo lawyers. We added templates, legal clause suggestions, even a clause library people could customize and reuse. We never tried to be everything for everyone. We were the anti-enterprise solution. Year 3, we were doing $85,000 MRR. We were profitable. A VC firm offered to acquire us for low 7 figures. I thought about it. A lot. But we said no. Why? Because we weren't done. This wasn't about a quick exit anymore. It was about building something durable. Today, we're at $120,000 MRR. 9 people. Fully remote. We sponsor co-working spaces for our employees. We've never had an office. I've never worn a suit for a Snapdraft meeting. And here's the wildest part. People have started copying us. I see startups with eerily similar UIs. Freelancers ping me asking for advice on their contract startups. I don't even feel mad. That's just how you know you're onto something. Sometimes I think about the coffee stain. If I hadn't ruined that contract, I might still be sleepwalking through middle management hell, wondering what it would have been like to build something. Instead, I get to wake up every day and do this. And yeah, it's stressful. No safety net. Revenue graphs that go sideways sometimes. Late nights. Weird bugs. Customer fires. But it's ours. And there's nothing like that. So if you're reading this, wondering whether your random annoyance with the world could be a product, start building. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just useful. I never planned on becoming an entrepreneur. In fact, I was pretty comfortable in my 9 to 5. I worked in product management for a mid-sized SaaS company. Decent salary, good team, safe growth trajectory. But then 2020 happened, and everything flipped. Like a lot of people, I started baking during lockdown. What started as me trying to recreate the sourdough recipes on YouTube turned into a full-on obsession. Eventually, I got into granola. I started experimenting with different nuts, oats, natural sweeteners, then protein blends, keto-friendly options, and weirdly addictive spicy granola with chili flakes and honey. I didn't even like granola that much before. I just got tired of how bland most store brands tasted. My version had punch. One day, I brought some to a socially distanced backyard hangout. My friend Sam tried it and said something like, "Dude, I would pay for this." I laughed it off, but that stuck with me. Over the next month, I started making small batches for friends and family. No labels, no real branding, just Ziploc bags with masking tape that said things like Cinnamon Crunch or Savage Maple. My cousin posted a picture of one bag on Instagram and tagged me. I got 5 DMs that day from people asking if they could buy it. I shrugged and said sure. That was the first little spark. I built a really basic Shopify store with 3 flavors and no real logo, just my name in a circle. Called it By Force. Not even sure why. I liked the sound of it. Made it sound like granola that punched you in the face in a good way. Within the first week, I got 14 orders. By week 4, I had done almost 100. I was hand-making everything in my kitchen after work, ordering ingredients in bulk from Amazon and a local organic supplier, packing and labeling everything myself. My apartment smelled like toasted oats 24/7. It was exciting but exhausting. I was basically working 2 jobs now, one to pay the bills, and one that I couldn't stop thinking about. By month 3, I crossed $2,500 in sales. That's when I started getting real. I hired a freelance designer from Upwork to make me a proper logo. I did some basic branding. Started learning about the FDA requirements for nutritional labeling. Hint, they're a nightmare. I figured out how to order legit packaging and finally ditched the Ziplocs. I didn't know anything about food businesses. So I cold emailed 20 small snack brand founders I found on LinkedIn. 5 replied. 2 were incredibly generous with their time. They walked me through their own horror stories, permits, shelf life testing, UPC codes, and why retail is a bloodbath. One of them told me, whatever you do, don't go to retail yet. Master DTC first. So that's what I did. I ran small Facebook and Instagram ads. I wrote long, weird emails to my tiny mailing list about how I burned a whole batch because I forgot to set the timer. People like that. It felt scrappy and human. At the 6-month mark, I had made $14,000 in total sales and broke even. I threw myself a dumb little solo party with leftover granola and a bottle of wine. Then I quit my job. Everyone thought I was insane. My dad literally said, "People don't even eat granola like that." My girlfriend at the time was supportive, but clearly didn't see the vision. Still, I felt this pull I couldn't ignore. I moved into a commercial kitchen space I rented by the hour and scaled up production. I hired a part-time packer from Craigslist, a college student named Maya who turned out to be an absolute beast at organizing orders. My days were 14 hours long and physically brutal, but sales were climbing. I hit $5,000 per month, then $8,000. Then came the TikTok moment. I posted a video of me dumping hot cinnamon honey granola onto a cooling rack with this dramatic soundtrack. It was kind of a joke, but it blew up. Like 600K views in 2 days. My Shopify dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. I did $11,000 that weekend. I had to call in friends just to keep up with orders. We literally ran out of packaging and started reusing boxes I had lying around. It was wild. But then things broke. The heat sealers we used for bags started malfunctioning. Half the orders from that viral weekend showed up half-open or with crushed granola. Customer service became a mess. My refund rate hit 12%. My ad account got flagged for suspicious activity, probably too much spend in a short time. I was sleeping 4 hours a night and still couldn't keep up. That's when I realized I had built a fire I couldn't control. I paused all paid marketing, issued refunds, and spent the next 2 weeks reworking everything: processes, suppliers, packaging. Hired a real co-packer, which took forever to find, and did shelf life testing. That cost me $6,000 and 3 weeks of waiting, but it meant I could finally pitch to actual stores. It was a necessary step. A few months later, we had a proper operation. I still kept DTC as our main revenue stream, but we dipped our toe into retail, just a few local health stores. The first time I saw my product on an actual shelf, I stood in front of it for 10 minutes just staring. Probably looked like a creep. Now, 2 years in, we're doing $40,000 to $50,000 per month. I have a team of 4. We're profitable, not rolling in it, but steady. We're in 32 stores across 3 states. My dad eats my granola now. My ex sent me a screenshot of a grocery haul where it was sitting in her cart. I grinned like an idiot. I still don't know where this ends. Maybe we go national. Maybe someone buys us out. Or maybe I just keep doing this weird little snack brand that came out of a pandemic boredom spiral. But I'll say this, I've never worked harder. I've never been more broke. And I've never felt more alive. If you're thinking about starting something, even something dumb like spicy granola, do it. You have no idea where it might take you. 5 years ago, I started my own business after getting fired from a job I thought I'd retire from. I was 34, had 2 kids, a mortgage, and about $3,200 in my bank account. What happened over the next 5 years was the hardest, messiest, and most life-changing experience I've ever been through, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Here's how I accidentally built a 7-figure business selling something I used to give away for free: advice. Let me back up a bit. I was working as a senior account manager at a mid-sized marketing firm in Chicago. I wasn't in love with the job, but I was good at it. I handled high-stakes clients, made great decks, and could sell ice to a polar bear. I liked the feeling of solving problems, especially branding and strategy stuff. But the company had started to shift. New management, weird culture changes, and I suddenly felt like I was on the outside of some inside joke. In February 2020, I got pulled into a meeting with HR and my direct supervisor. Long story short, layoffs, budget cuts. We value your contribution, but I remember leaving with a box of my things, walking to my car in 20-degree weather, and just sitting there for an hour. I didn't tell my wife until that evening. I couldn't even say the words, "I got fired." I just said, "They let me go." I started applying to new jobs immediately. But then March 2020, pandemic, lockdowns, hiring freezes, everything ground to a halt. My wife was still working remote, thankfully, but we knew we couldn't survive long on one salary and my dwindling savings. I started freelancing. At first, just tiny gigs on Upwork. Branding advice, pitch deck reviews, startup strategy audits. $50 here, $200 there. One night, I charged a guy $15 to look over his business name ideas. It felt like a joke, but he was grateful, and he left a glowing review. That small piece of validation became oxygen for me. By June 2020, I'd done about 40 small gigs. Word started to spread. Founders started DMing me directly. "Hey, I saw your feedback on XYZ startup. Can I pay you to look over my pitch? Or my startup just got into an accelerator, but we suck at branding. Can you help us position ourselves?" At this point, I was still making maybe $1,500 a month. Nowhere near enough. But something clicked. I wasn't just freelancing, I was solving a real, repeatable problem. Early-stage founders needed no BS branding and strategy advice, but they didn't have the budget for fancy agencies. So I made a website. I called it Clarity Forge. Terrible name, I know. It sounded like a dandy magic item, but I didn't care. I slapped it on a Wix page with a Stripe button that said, "Book a brand strategy session, $199. And people booked it. Every time my phone pinged with a new Stripe payment, I felt like I'd discovered fire. By the end of 2020, I'd made just under $27,000. Still broke, but for the first time, I saw a path forward. Then came the breakthrough moment. A founder I'd worked with told me, "You should productize this." I didn't know what that meant at first, but he explained. Instead of just selling my time, I could create a playbook or system people could buy and use themselves. That way, I could scale beyond my calendar. So I spent December 2020 writing everything I knew about branding into a giant Google document. I turned it into a 70-page PDF and sold it for $49. I emailed every client I'd ever had and posted about it on LinkedIn. I sold 98 copies in 2 days. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just freelancing anymore. I was building a business. In 2021, I doubled down. I turned the PDF into a full course, videos, templates, Notion workbooks. I priced it at $199, then $249. I started making YouTube videos sharing case studies and free advice. One went semi-viral, 30,000 views, and brought in over 400 leads in a month. I reinvested everything. Hired a designer to redo my brand. Paid a copywriter to improve my landing pages. Took a course on digital funnels. I stopped calling myself a freelancer and started saying I ran a boutique strategy firm. It felt ridiculous at first, like cosplay. But clients believed it, and eventually, so did I. Revenue in 2021, $146,000. 2022 was the year things exploded. A well-known VC tweeted out my course. I woke up to over 800 new orders in 48 hours. Stripe temporarily froze my account because the activity looked suspicious. I had to send them a selfie holding my driver's license. I looked like a deer in headlights. I launched 2 more products, a naming course and a deck critique package. Started doing small group coaching cohorts. Built a little team, 1 assistant, 1 developer, 1 content editor. We weren't an agency, not really, but we felt like one. Revenue in 2022, $312,000. In 2023, I finally took a paycheck. My wife and I cried when I transferred my first official monthly salary from the business to our personal account. I hired a fractional COO to help me get my systems in order. We built a custom portal so clients could log in and track their projects. I started saying we instead of I. Then something wild happened. A big agency tried to acquire us. They offered $2.1 million. I said no. Not because I thought the business was worth more, though maybe it is, but because for the first time in my life, I loved what I did. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something that mattered. To me, to my clients, to my family. I wanted to see how far I could take it. Revenue in 2023, $784,000. Today, we're on track to cross $1.2 million in 2024. We have 7 people on the team. We've worked with over 1,300 startups in 22 countries. I still take on a few one-on-one sessions a month, not because I need to, but because I genuinely love helping people untangle their mess and turn it into something meaningful. Sometimes I think about that first $15 gig. I remember how small it felt, how desperate I was. And now I look at the Slack messages from our team, the Notion dashboards, the client results, and it feels like a different lifetime. Entrepreneurship, at least for me, wasn't a single bold leap. It was 10,000 tiny pivots, late-night Google searches, uncomfortable self-doubt, and learning to trust my own value. I didn't build a rocket ship. I built a raft, and I kept patching the holes until one day, it felt like a boat. So yeah, I got fired in 2020. Best thing that ever happened to me. I never meant to become an entrepreneur. I didn't have some grand vision or a 5-year plan or even a dream. Honestly, I was just broke, pissed off, and tired of being told what to do by people who clearly had no idea what they were doing. It started in 2018. I was 27, working at a mid-sized marketing agency in Chicago. I had a good title, content strategy lead, but it was mostly fluff. I was making $58,000 a year and barely getting by after rent, student loans, and keeping up the illusion that I was doing okay. You know the drill. Happy hours you can't afford, networking events that lead nowhere, friends getting married while you're wondering how the hell they even pay for that. Anyway, one day our agency got a new client, a mid-tier meal delivery service that wanted to rebrand. They were bleeding customers to HelloFresh and Blue Apron and needed a Hail Mary. I was put on the team in charge of content and retention strategy. Over the next 6 months, I went deep. I mean spreadsheets, interviews, competitor analysis, A/B tests on subject lines, you name it. Long story short, we crushed it. Our retention strategies alone dropped churn by 22% over the course of 3 quarters, and the rebrand brought them a wave of free PR. My boss presented the results to the board like he'd written every word of the new customer journey. I got a Starbucks gift card and a good job in Slack. That was the first time I seriously thought, I could do this myself. It wasn't an overnight jump. I started moonlighting as a freelancer on Upwork. Small businesses, solopreneurs, and bootstrapped SaaS founders were my first clients. I charged $35 per hour at first, and by the end of the year, I was making more money in 15 hours of freelance work than I was at my day job. I didn't quit then, though. I was scared. I kept thinking, what if this dries up? What if I can't find enough clients? What if I'm just lucky? Then in March 2020, COVID hit. My agency laid off 40% of the staff. I was one of them. Panic. I had $4,300 in my checking account, 2 months of rent left, and no backup. But I also had something I didn't realize until then, momentum. Within 2 weeks, I turned my side hustle into my full-time hustle. I doubled my hours, raised my rate to $60 per hour, and reached out to every client I'd ever worked with. Most of them were still running their businesses and needed help more than ever. By August, I hit my first $10,000 month. It felt surreal. I celebrated by buying a fancy toaster because I'd read somewhere that small wins matter. But freelancing had its ceilings. Time is finite, and burnout was creeping in. Every day was just meetings, copy decks, brand guides, and just one more revision emails. I knew I couldn't keep doing it like that forever. That's when I got an idea. One of my clients had hired me to write onboarding emails for a new productivity app. It was great tech, but terrible messaging. I rebuilt their flow and their activation rate jumped by 38%. That gave me a weird kind of high. It also gave me a niche. What if I specialized just in SaaS onboarding strategy? Not full brand work, not blog posts, not social. Just the first 30 days of the customer journey. I tested it out by launching a one-page site called Onboard. I put together a few case studies, wrote a blog post or 2, and sent a cold email campaign to 200 SaaS founders. 13 replied. 4 became clients. That month, I made $18,000. By the end of 2021, I turned Onboard into a boutique consultancy. I brought on a junior copywriter and a project manager, both part-time contractors. We were small, scrappy, and weirdly efficient. We didn't do long sales calls. We had packages, set pricing, and a 30-day turnaround guarantee. Clients loved it. They got results. We got referrals. Then in mid-2022, I did something kind of insane. I launched a cohort-based course. A few of my clients had asked if I'd ever considered teaching founders how to build onboarding flows themselves. I was hesitant. Courses felt scammy to me. But I also knew there were a lot of indie hackers and solo founders out there who couldn't afford our $8,000 onboarding package. So I built a live course over 3 weekends, capped it at 20 people, and charged $495 per seat. It sold out in 3 days. Running that first cohort was electric. People were engaged. The Slack group was buzzing. Founders were helping each other, and shipping changes live. And the feedback? Incredible. That changed everything. Over the next 18 months, I shifted my business model from done-for-you to a hybrid model. 40% client work, 60% education. We now run 3 cohorts per year and added a $99 per month membership for ongoing support and templates. We've had over 700 founders go through the program. I even got asked to speak at MicroCNF and SAA Stock. But here's the truth they don't put on glossy founder bios. I still have no idea what I'm doing half the time. There have been rough patches. A dry Q4 where I had to dip into savings. A bad hire that cost me 3 clients. A moment in 2023 where I was convinced I needed to raise funding, only to realize I was chasing growth that didn't align with why I started this in the first place. The most important lesson I've learned? Build slow. Build weird. Build for the life you want, not the one Twitter says you should want. Today, I work 30 hours a week. I live in a small house in Asheville with my partner and our dog. I go hiking on Wednesdays. I make enough. More than enough, actually. But most of all, I feel something I never felt in all those years of trying to climb someone else's ladder. Peace. I didn't become an entrepreneur to get rich. I became one to get free. And I did. 5 years ago, I started a luxury candle business out of spite. Now it makes $1.8 million a year. So this whole thing started not out of some grand entrepreneurial vision, but because I got dumped. My ex at the time told me during one of our final arguments, "You never finish anything you start." Which, to be fair, was kind of true. I tried a food truck, a travel blog, a t-shirt brand. I'd jump in head first, get distracted, and move on to the next shiny idea. After we split, I was sulking in my apartment, scrolling Instagram while drinking boxed wine. I kept seeing these minimalistic candle brands that looked fancy, but were charging $60 plus for something I could probably make myself. That's when the idea hit. I was going to start a candle brand. And this time, I was going to finish what I started. I knew nothing about candles. I went full rabbit hole. Reddit, YouTube, forums, weird DIY blogs from 2007, anywhere I could learn. I ordered a starter kit with soy wax, wicks, and essential oils. My first batch smelled like a citrus-scented war crime, but I kept tweaking. Within a month, I had 3 solid scents that didn't suck: cedar and leather, bergamot and amber, and a seasonal peppermint one. I came up with the brand name, Ember and Ash. Clean, simple, a little mysterious. I designed the logo myself in Canva, bought a domain, and set up a Shopify store. I even wrote these over-the-top poetic descriptions for each candle scent, like I was running a perfume house in 19th century France. But it worked. It gave the brand a luxe but moody vibe. Then came launch day. I posted on my personal Instagram and got 5 orders, 3 from friends, 2 from a cousin. My first real breakthrough came a month later when I sent a few free candles to micro-influencers. One of them, a home decor account with 40K followers, posted an aesthetic reel lighting the cedar and leather one while playing lo-fi jazz. It blew up. I got 287 orders in 48 hours. I had about 50 candles in stock. Cue absolute panic. I hadn't figured out packaging at scale, had no clue how to print shipping labels in bulk, and had to take 3 days off work just to fulfill orders out of my 500 square foot apartment. I learned on the fly, scaled up packaging, found a supplier who'd sell me glass jars in batches of 500, and signed up for Pirate Ship to handle shipping. By month 6, I'd cleared $42,000 in revenue. Profit? Maybe $9,000. But it felt like I was building something real for the first time. I made a decision early on. I was going to treat this like a luxury brand from day one, even if I was making candles in my kitchen next to a drying rack. Every order got a handwritten note. The unboxing experience was Instagram-worthy. Matte black boxes, soft touch labels, scent cards that smelled like the candle itself. People started tagging us in their posts. Word spread. Then came the nightmare of Q4. I didn't understand how insane the holiday season is for e-commerce. I ran a Black Friday sale without knowing what I could fulfill. I got 1,200 orders in one weekend. I cried in the shower. Twice. I had to call in reinforcements, friends, my mom, even my upstairs neighbor, to help pour, label, and pack. My landlord threatened eviction because the hallways smelled aggressively fragrant. But we got through it. That November and December, I made $142,000 in sales. I was still doing everything myself, but I used the profits to rent a tiny studio space and hire my first part-time assistant. The real turning point came in year 2. I partnered with a local ceramicist to create limited edition vessels. They were stunning, each one unique. I priced them at $95. They sold out in under an hour. That gave me confidence to expand. I released a subscription box called the Ember Society, exclusive seasonal scents, behind-the-scenes content, even a Spotify playlist for each candle. Our subscriber base grew to 5,000 members in 18 months. I also doubled down on brand storytelling. Instead of just marketing candles, I talked about rituals, intentionality, slowing down. I hired a small content team. We made short films for each scent. One was just a man reading Rainer Maria Rilke in a pine forest while a candle flickered next to him. Dramatic as hell, but people ate it up. By year 3, we crossed $1 million in annual revenue. I quit my job, hired a full-time operations lead, moved the business into a real warehouse. We started white labeling for boutique hotels. Even Anthropologie picked us up for a limited run. I flew to New York for the launch party, wearing a blazer I definitely couldn't afford 2 years earlier. We're now in year 5. 17 employees. $1.8 million revenue last year. We're launching in Canada this summer. I'm still the creative director, but I haven't poured a candle myself in over 2 years. Sometimes I miss those 2 a.m. candle sessions, just me and a podcast and a pile of wax. But then I remember how many times I nearly set off my smoke alarm, and I'm good. So yeah, got dumped, got bitter, built a candle empire. Guess I finally finished something. Back in 2017, I was 27, broke, and running out of patience. I had just quit my 4th job in 2 years, not because I was lazy, but because I couldn't shake this feeling that I was meant to be building something of my own. I wasn't one of those "I've been hustling since age 11" types. I didn't sell candy at school or flip sneakers on eBay. I was just a regular guy with average grades, a decent work ethic, and a simmering frustration that refused to die. My last job was in marketing at a mid-sized SaaS company. I didn't hate the work, but the bureaucracy drove me insane. I watched great ideas die slow deaths in endless meetings, and I knew I couldn't stick around much longer. So I left, without savings, without a plan, just this one dumb idea I couldn't shake. I wanted to build the Canva of pitch decks. It sounds corny now, but at the time, it felt brilliant. My logic was simple. Startups, small businesses, freelancers, they all needed to pitch. But most people sucked at design or didn't have the time. And while you had tools like PowerPoint and Keynote, they were either clunky or too generic. What if you could answer a few questions and get a stunning deck, tailored to your audience, in minutes? So, naturally, I Googled how to build a SaaS product and started from there. I called it Deckly. I spent the next 4 months working on a prototype. I had zero tech skills, so I used no-code tools like Webflow, Bubble, and Typeform. It was clunky, slow, and ugly, but it worked. You'd answer 10 to 15 questions, and it would spit out a halfway decent pitch deck based on your answers, using templates I created with help from some designer friends. By March 2018, I was down to my last $800. I had moved back into my parents' basement. I was eating canned soup and stealing Wi-Fi from the neighbors because our router was busted. I put up a landing page and posted on Product Hunt, Indie Hackers, Reddit, and a few Facebook groups. Then, something wild happened. Within 48 hours, the site had 12,000 visitors. I got featured on a few newsletters, some startup blogs, and even landed a mention in a LinkedIn post by some VC associate who called it a promising new pitch tech. I had 300 signups in 3 days. 87 people paid for the $29 Pro version. That first $2,500 felt better than winning the lottery. But the real kicker was an email I got that week from a startup accelerator in Berlin. They wanted to use Deckly to help their next cohort build pitch decks and asked if I could create a version with some customization features. I said yes without knowing how I'd do it. Cue the next 6 months of absolute chaos. I hired a freelance developer using 50% of my earnings. His name was Alex, a guy from Ukraine who charged $15 per hour and ended up becoming my co-founder later. We rebuilt the back end, integrated GPT-2 for smarter content suggestions, GPT-3 wasn't available to us yet, and added real-time collaboration. It was janky but better. By early 2019, we were making $7,000 per month, mostly from word of mouth and SEO. I still remember cold emailing 50 startup newsletters a week, DMing people on Twitter, and posting in every Slack group I could find. I did demos at 2 a.m. for Australian clients and offered free custom decks just to get testimonials. Then came the inflection point. A VC firm, not huge, but well-known, asked if we could create a white-label version of Deckly for their portfolio companies. They offered $20,000 upfront and a monthly retainer. I couldn't believe it. That money let me pay off debt, move out of my parents' house, and go full-time with Alex. By the end of 2019, we were at $25,000 MRR. We had bootstrapped everything. No investors. No team beyond me, Alex, and a part-time designer. We kept costs lean, automated everything, and focused on one thing, making pitch decks stupidly easy. Then COVID hit. At first, we panicked. A few clients churned. Deal flow slowed. But then, something unexpected happened. Remote pitching exploded. Startups needed better decks more than ever. VCs were flooded with pitch emails, and everyone needed to stand out. Deckly grew to $60,000 MRR by mid-2020. We launched a live pitch mode, basically a slide-sharing tool with integrated speaker notes and auto transitions, and it blew up on Product Hunt again. We made our first hire, a customer support rep named Priya, who ended up becoming our head of ops. By 2021, we had a team of 200-plus paying customers, and started getting inbound interest from acquirers. We said no. I wasn't ready to sell. I wanted to see how far we could take it. But here's the twist. In 2022, someone launched a near-exact clone of Deckly. Better design. More templates. And they were VC-backed. At first, I panicked. I thought we were toast. But then I realized we had something they didn't. Community. Over the years, I've been super active with our users. I replied to every email, posted updates, took feature requests seriously, and shared the behind-the-scenes stuff on Twitter and Reddit. People rooted for us. And when the clone tried to poach users, a bunch of them called them out online and stayed loyal. That loyalty saved us. We doubled down on our users, added video pitch tools, integrated Notion and Figma support, and even launched a pitch audit service where real investors would review your deck for a fee. It crushed. In late 2023, we crossed $100,000 MRR. We bootstrapped all the way. I still hadn't taken a proper vacation in 5 years, but it was worth it. Last month, March 2025, we finally sold Deckly. A larger SaaS company in the enterprise enablement space made us an offer we couldn't refuse. It was an all-cash deal, mid-7 figures. I cried when I signed the papers. Not because I was rich now, but because I had actually done it. I built something real. From nothing. Now I'm 35. I still live modestly. I'm working on a new idea, something totally different. And yeah, I'll probably screw it up a few times before I get it right. But I'll keep building. That's what we do. Hey, friends. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I've always had the entrepreneurial bug, but I wasn't born into a family of entrepreneurs. Far from it. My parents were both school teachers, and growing up in a small town, the idea of starting a business felt like a distant dream. But like any story worth telling, mine didn't start out perfectly. It started with a failure, a lot of fear, and more than a few moments where I thought I'd never make it. I remember it like it was yesterday, the day I decided to go for it. It was a rainy Tuesday, the kind where the clouds hang low and the whole world seems to slow down. I had been working as a marketing assistant at a mid-level company for about 3 years. The job was fine, but something about it just didn't sit right with me. The work was repetitive, the culture felt stuck, and every morning as I walked into that office, I had this gnawing feeling that there had to be something more for me. I had ideas, big ones, and I wanted to put them into action. I'd always been passionate about fitness, and one of my side hobbies was doing personal training on weekends. I loved helping people reach their fitness goals, but I could never shake the thought that I could turn this passion into something bigger. A business. I could feel it. There was a market, a real opportunity to take what I had learned from my side gig and scale it into something meaningful. So I did what anyone with big dreams and no experience would do. I took a leap. I quit my stable job, dove headfirst into the fitness industry, and started my own personal training business. My goal was simple: create an online platform where people could access personalized workout plans, nutritional advice, and most importantly, a sense of community. I figured that the fitness industry was booming and the demand for virtual solutions was growing. This could work. The first couple of months were rough. Like, really rough. I didn't have much of a savings cushion, and the few clients I had were mostly people I knew from my past work. I built a website, but it looked like something out of the early 2000s. I had zero marketing budget, so I relied heavily on social media and word of mouth to get clients. To make matters worse, I was barely making enough to pay my rent, and I was still trying to figure out how to build a brand. But in those early days, there was a defining moment that I'll never forget. I had this one client, a middle-aged guy named Tom, who'd been struggling with weight loss for years. We'd been working together for a few months, and he was seeing results. But what really hit me was the message he sent me one evening after a particularly tough workout. "Hey, just wanted to let you know I hit my goal today. Lost 30 pounds in 3 months. Never thought it was possible until I started working with you." That message stopped me in my tracks. I realized that I wasn't just running a business. I was making a real difference in people's lives. And that fueled me to keep going, despite how hard everything felt at the time. Tom's success, however small, reminded me why I started this whole thing in the first place. But the struggle didn't end there. Building a business is not a straight path. A few months after that first breakthrough, I ran into a huge roadblock. I'd invested in paid ads to increase my visibility, but the ads were a disaster. I spent hundreds of dollars, and while I did get more traffic to my site, I wasn't converting them into paying clients. I was close to throwing in the towel, but I had one last ace up my sleeve. I decided to launch a free challenge, a 7-day fitness challenge where people could get a taste of what my personal training program offered. The challenge was simple: 7 days of workouts, nutrition advice, and motivational content. I made it free, but with an opt-in. They had to sign up with their email, and in return, they'd get a glimpse of the results they could achieve if they committed long-term. My thinking was that if I could hook them with this free value, they'd see the bigger picture. The challenge was a hit. Within a week, my email list grew by over 1,000 people, and I had a new wave of potential clients interested in my programs. That free challenge was a turning point, and it showed me the power of content marketing. I started creating more free resources, educational blog posts, and guides on fitness that didn't feel like a hard sell. They were just genuinely helpful. I poured all my energy into creating quality content that built trust and authority in my niche. Soon enough, things started picking up. I turned my small email list into a loyal following, and my revenue began to rise. It wasn't instantaneous success, but over the course of the next year, I was able to create a sustainable income. My personal training business started gaining traction, and I even hired a small team to help with the growing demand. I learned that running a business isn't just about the work you do. It's about the people you hire, the partnerships you form, and the way you keep learning along the way. But the real breakthrough came when I decided to scale even further. I started developing online courses and subscription programs. My vision expanded from just personal training to creating a comprehensive wellness platform. I built a membership site where people could access workout programs, nutrition advice, and a community of like-minded individuals supporting each other. The results? Mind-blowing. My platform grew rapidly. I reached more people than I ever thought possible. The business now generates multiple 6 figures a year, and I've been able to hire a fantastic team of trainers, marketers, and customer support. I was no longer working out of a cramped apartment with just a few clients. I had a full-fledged operation, and I was living my dream. Looking back, the key to my success wasn't just having a great idea. It was about persistence. It was about making mistakes and learning from them. The road wasn't easy, and I spent many sleepless nights wondering if I was cut out for this. But I kept pushing, kept innovating, and kept remembering why I started in the first place. I learned that failure is part of the process, and the only way to lose is to give up. I'm not saying that it's all smooth sailing now. Every business has its challenges, but I've learned that with passion, grit, and an open mind, you can overcome just about anything. And most importantly, never forget the impact you're making along the way. The financial success is great, but the real reward has always been knowing that I've helped thousands of people achieve their health and fitness goals. So if you're out there thinking about starting your own business, let this be a reminder that the journey is tough, but so worth it. Start small, learn from your mistakes, and don't ever forget that your ideas have the power to change lives, even if it's just one person at a time. Keep going. I've been through a lot in the past 5 years. It's been a journey full of ups and downs, a lot of hard lessons, and a fair share of victories. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that entrepreneurship isn't about being the smartest person in the room, but about being the one who can take the hits and keep moving forward. Let me start from the beginning. Back in 2018, I was fresh out of college. I had an average GPA, but what I had going for me was ambition. I didn't want the typical 9 to 5 job, working for someone else, climbing the corporate ladder. I wanted to create something of my own. I had no idea what that something would be, but I knew I had to start. I've always been the kind of person who likes to figure things out. So, I decided to dive into the world of e-commerce. At the time, dropshipping was a popular buzzword, and I figured it was a simple way to get started. I watched a ton of YouTube videos, read articles, and took a few online courses. I felt like I was ready to take on the world. I spent the next 6 months setting up my first online store. It was all about niche products, things I thought people might want but weren't widely available. I had a few products in mind, set up my Shopify store, and started running Facebook ads. I was ready for my first sale. I'll never forget that first sale. It was a $15 order from a random person, and I was ecstatic. It wasn't much, but it was enough to fuel my fire. I felt like this was it, the start of something big. But then, nothing. No more sales. I spent more money on ads, trying to figure out what I was doing wrong. I did everything I could think of, changed the website design, tweaked my ads, tested different product descriptions, but nothing worked. The money I'd invested started to dwindle, and I felt like I was losing control. I was down, but I wasn't out. I realized that maybe I wasn't focusing on the right things. I thought back to my college days and remembered a business professor who always talked about value. Real, tangible value. Maybe, just maybe, I needed to focus more on creating something that truly mattered to people. I shut down my store and spent the next year diving deep into product development. I started learning about what products people really cared about. I kept my eyes open for things that weren't just trendy, but that people could actually use to improve their lives. That's when I stumbled upon the idea for my next business. It came from a personal frustration I'd been dealing with for years, organizing my work life. I'm the kind of person who's always juggling a million things at once, and I could never find a system that worked for me. I thought to myself, what if I could create a planner, but not just any planner, one that was designed to help people like me stay on top of everything? I started sketching ideas for a productivity planner that was more than just a calendar. It would have goal-setting pages, habit trackers, and layouts that could actually help people organize their thoughts, tasks, and ideas in a way that made sense. It was a completely different direction than e-commerce, but I believed in it. I figured if I could put the same level of effort into this that I had with my previous venture, it might actually work. The next few months were spent researching the market, talking to potential customers, and figuring out how to manufacture the product. I ended up designing a prototype, and after a lot of trial and error, I finally had something I was proud of. But the hardest part was still ahead. I had no idea how to market a physical product. I had only done online stores before, where the focus was mostly on digital marketing. I didn't have the budget to hire an expensive marketing agency, and I wasn't about to throw money at ads without a clear strategy. So, I turned to social media. I started a small Instagram account for my product, focusing on showing off how the planner could help people with their productivity. I posted daily, engaged with my followers, and tried to get honest feedback on the product. Slowly, people started noticing. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't easy. But over time, the following grew. I started getting orders through Instagram, and eventually, people were reaching out to me asking for wholesale orders. That's when I realized I had a real business on my hands. Fast forward to today, and I'm running a small but successful business. My planner line is in several local stores, and I've got a loyal customer base online. I've learned a lot over the years, but here are the biggest lessons I've taken away from this journey. 1. Don't be afraid to pivot. When my first business didn't work, I could have just given up. But instead, I took the time to step back and evaluate what I was truly passionate about. Pivoting doesn't mean you failed. It means you're learning and evolving. 2. Consistency is key. When I started posting on Instagram, it was exhausting. I felt like I was just shouting into the void. But I kept posting day after day because I knew it would pay off. And eventually, it did. 3. You don't need to have it all figured out. I didn't have a clear vision when I started my planner business. In fact, I had no idea what I was doing half the time. But I kept moving forward, even when I didn't know all the answers. 4. Customer feedback is gold. My initial product was nothing like the one I sell now. I learned so much from my customers, and their feedback helped me improve the product significantly. 5. Failure is part of the process. I can't count how many times I thought I was done, that I would never succeed. But each time, I came back stronger. Failure isn't the end of the road. It's part of the journey. As I sit here today, I think about all the people who told me I'd never make it. I remember the countless sleepless nights, the stress of not knowing if I'd be able to pay my bills, the anxiety of watching my savings disappear. But it all led to this point. Entrepreneurship isn't glamorous. It's not just about quitting your job and working from a beach in Bali. It's about grinding, day in and day out. It's about believing in yourself even when no one else does. It's about staying the course when everything feels like it's falling apart. If you're starting out, or if you're stuck in a rut, I want you to know this. It's okay to fail. It's okay to change direction. Just keep going, because you never know when your breakthrough will come. And when it does, you'll realize all the struggles were worth it. To anyone out there wondering if they should take the leap into entrepreneurship, my answer is simple. Go for it. You'll have tough days, you'll question yourself, and there will be times when you feel like giving up. But I promise you this, if you keep at it, it will be worth it. You have everything you need to make it happen. Now, you just have to keep moving forward. End of story. About 5 years ago, I was living paycheck to paycheck, working 60-hour weeks at a marketing agency, and quietly wondering if this was just what adulthood was. The routine was killing me. Wake up at 6:30, sit in traffic, grind all day, sit in more traffic, eat, sleep, repeat. I wasn't unhappy exactly, but I definitely wasn't excited to wake up in the morning. Then, during one random late-night doom scroll, I saw a tweet that said something like, "You're one skill away from changing your entire life." It wasn't profound, but it stuck in my brain. That same week, my team had just lost a big client, and the company's response was to pile the work onto the remaining clients. It was brutal. I stayed at the office until 11 p.m. 3 nights in a row. I started fantasizing about quitting, but I had no backup plan and almost no savings. One night, while decompressing at a dive bar with a friend who worked in software, I was complaining about how burnout I felt. He said, "Why don't you freelance? You're good at what you do. Just start taking clients on the side." I brushed it off. I wouldn't even know where to start. He pulled out his phone and showed me Upwork. That night I signed up, threw together a half-assed profile, and listed myself as a marketing strategist. I didn't expect anything to come from it, but a week later, someone messaged me asking if I could help with their email campaign. It was a $200 gig. I did it over a weekend and realized 2 things. 1, I liked working directly with clients, and 2, I just made more in one weekend than I normally made in a weeknight's worth of overtime. That first gig snowballed. I started picking up 1 to 2 side clients a month. My weekends were gone, but weirdly, I felt better, more in control. I started turning down weekend plans, not because I had work, but because I wanted to work. About 6 months in, I had enough side income to match 50% of my salary. I started fantasizing about quitting again. I crunched the numbers and figured if I lived lean for a while, I could maybe go full-time freelance within a year. That was the plan. But then life threw a wrench. My agency laid off 12 people, including me. At first I panicked. No severance, minimal savings, and my freelance income wasn't steady yet. I seriously considered crawling back to the 9-to-5 world. I even started updating my resume. Then one of my freelance clients reached out and said, "Hey, can we double our hours this month?" I said yes, without hesitation. Over the next 3 weeks, I aggressively pitched myself to every potential client I could find. Cold emails, LinkedIn messages, job boards, referrals. I said yes to everything. By the end of that month, I had replaced 80% of my former salary and didn't have to commute anymore. It felt surreal. Within a year, I was earning more than I had at my agency job, with better hours, more interesting projects, and zero micromanagers. I thought I had made it. But of course, that's not where this story ends. My first real entrepreneurial pivot came when one of my clients asked me to help them build out a team. They had a small e-commerce business, and they were scaling fast. They needed help not just with marketing, but with building systems, automation, hiring VAs, customer service flows, all of it. I didn't have experience with that stuff, but I'd been reading a ton and absorbing like a sponge. I said yes and figured it out as I went. Long story short, I ended up becoming more like an outsourced COO for them. They offered me equity. I declined but started thinking, what if I built something like this myself? That led to my next chapter. I started studying e-commerce. I spent months learning Shopify, product sourcing, ad funnels, email sequences. I tested 2 or 3 niche product stores. Most flopped. I lost a couple grand. My girlfriend, now wife, thought I was losing it. Then one night, I found a small but loyal subreddit obsessed with home cocktail accessories. Think mixology nerds who care deeply about bar spoons and ice molds. I'd been into cocktails for years, so I understood the niche. I built a basic Shopify store focused on bar gear. I sourced a few quality items and designed packaging that looked sleek but giftable. The whole setup cost me about $4,000, which was terrifying at the time. To get customers, I ran a giveaway on Instagram in collaboration with a cocktail influencer. The prize was a $200 bar kit I put together from my store. Entry required following my page, tagging a friend, and joining my email list. It worked. I gained 3,000 followers and about 1,100 emails in a week. Then I ran a launch sale. We did $11,200 in the first month. I nearly cried. Over the next 6 months, I reinvested every dollar into inventory and ads. I stayed lean, doing customer service myself, packing orders in my apartment, handwriting thank you notes. It was exhausting and insanely fun. Eventually, I hired a VA and outsourced fulfillment to a 3PL. I started sleeping more and stressing less. We hit $100,000 in monthly revenue 18 months in. I've since launched 2 other micro brands using the same model. Find a niche I understand, build a brand that speaks directly to them, and go hard on community-driven marketing. Today, I run a small portfolio of niche e-commerce brands, mostly with remote teams. I work from home or coffee shops or wherever I feel like. I still put in long hours sometimes, but it doesn't feel like a grind anymore. It feels like building. It's wild to think that this all started with a random tweet and a $200 Upwork job. I'm not a genius. I didn't raise funding. I don't have an MBA. I just leaned into what I was good at, kept showing up, and didn't let early failures stop me. If you're stuck in a job you hate or unsure where to start, just remember, you don't have to build the next Uber. You just have to build something that works, even if it's just a bar spoon. I never thought I'd be the guy who started a business from a garage, mainly because I didn't even have a garage. I had a basement I shared with 2 other guys and a mouse named Charlie who, frankly, contributed more to the household than the third roommate did. But hey, dreams start somewhere, right? The idea hit me during one of those soul-sucking 10-minute breaks at a call center where I worked. It was the kind of job where your headset became part of your skull, and saying, "I understand your frustration, ma'am," came out in your sleep. I was miserable. Every time I asked my manager about promotion opportunities, he gave me the same line: stick around long enough, and something will open up. That something turned out to be a new coffee machine in the break room. Nice. I had a side hobby restoring old sneakers. Just for fun. I'd buy beat-up Jordans on eBay, clean them, repaint them, relace them with premium laces, and flip them on local marketplaces. What started as a weekend gig turned into a legit hustle. I was making $400 to $600 a month just restoring shoes in my spare time. I figured if I could do that for 10 to 15 pairs a month, what could I do if I had more time? So, I quit. I know. Dumb. I had $1,300 in my bank account, no health insurance, and a 2009 Corolla with 176,000 miles on it. But there's something liberating about jumping off a cliff and deciding you'll build a parachute on the way down. At first, I focused on increasing volume. I started buying more sneakers, learned how to spot fakes better, and got good at negotiating. I also discovered how insanely overpriced cleaning kits were, so I started making my own cleaning solution with household items, and it actually worked better. I even sold a few bottles to people asking how I got such good results. That was the moment I realized maybe I shouldn't just restore sneakers. Maybe I should build a brand around this. I called it Soul Revive. I bought the domain, slapped together a Shopify site, and used my iPhone 8 and a desk lamp to shoot product photos. I launched a basic sneaker cleaning kit with my homemade solution, some brushes I sourced from Alibaba, microfiber cloths, and a guide I wrote in Google Docs and printed out like a zine. The first week, I made 4 sales, 3 of them were from friends. The 4th was from a stranger in Indiana, and I nearly cried when the notification hit my phone. Marketing was rough. I couldn't afford ads, so I started making TikToks showing my restorations. I do before and after shots, time-lapse of the cleaning process, and tips on spotting fake Yeezys. One of them blew up 200K views in 2 days. I sold out of kits that week. But scaling was hell. I didn't have a fulfillment center. I was the fulfillment center. My room looked like a Home Depot crashed into a Foot Locker. I was mixing solution in empty juice bottles, packaging orders by hand, and writing thank you notes like some kind of emotional robot. At one point, I ran out of bottles and started using empty protein shake containers. It was not a good look. I finally got a friend to help out, shout out to Kevin, who accepted payment in Chipotle bowls for 3 months. We streamlined things, got better packaging, and reinvested everything into inventory. Sales climbed. By month 6, we hit $10,000 in revenue. I wasn't rich, but I was independent, and that felt better than any paycheck I'd ever gotten. Then came the copycats. Larger accounts started ripping my TikToks. One guy even stole my exact kit formula, word for word. I was pissed, but I realized it was part of the game. I couldn't beat them with ads or budget, so I doubled down on what I could offer, storytelling. I leaned into my background, told the story of how I started, shared behind-the-scenes footage of screw-ups and late nights. People loved it. I turned customers into fans by just being honest. Around month 10, I got an email from a boutique sneaker store in Atlanta. They wanted to carry Soul Revive kits in-store. Then another shop in Portland reached out. By the end of the year, we were in 5 physical retail locations and doing consistent $15,000 to $20,000 per month. I finally got to move out of that basement. Not gonna lie, I almost missed Charlie the Mouse. Now, I won't sugarcoat it. There were days I wanted to give up. The worst was when I got a bulk shipment of brushes and half of them were defective. I had to refund 120 orders and lost almost $3,000. I spent the weekend emailing every customer personally and offering discounts or replacement kits. Only one person actually took me up on the refund. That's when I realized I wasn't just selling cleaner. I was building trust. Fast forward to now, 2.5 years in. Soul Revive has 3 employees, a small warehouse space, and we're expanding into apparel collabs with local artists. We just did a limited edition run of kits with custom designs by a graffiti artist in Chicago, and it sold out in 48 hours. Wild. Sometimes I walk into sneaker stores and see my product on the shelf, and it still feels like I'm going to wake up with a headset on, telling someone to unplug their router for the 6th time. The biggest lesson I've learned? You don't need a genius idea. You just need a real one. Something people care about, something that solves a problem. And if you can combine that with relentless consistency, even if it's from a basement with a mouse as your only coworker, you're dangerous. I started a business by accident, made $800,000 in 18 months, and then almost lost everything because I ignored the most basic rule of entrepreneurship. I'll start at the beginning. I was 28, living in Austin, working as a UX designer for a mid-sized SaaS company. Good salary, boring work. I was one of those guys who always had a few side hustles, but none of them really went anywhere. Dropshipping? Did it. Amazon FBA? Tried that too. Blogging, affiliate marketing, even a short-lived attempt at making novelty t-shirts. I'm not embarrassed by the failures, each one taught me something. But none of them felt like it. One Saturday morning, my friend Ben, who's the closest thing I have to a brother, calls me and says, "Dude, I have an idea." I roll my eyes because Ben has about 10 new ideas a week. This one sounded like another dud. What if we made a simple web app that helps freelancers generate contracts easily? Now, I had seen tools like Bonsai and Hello Bonsai, but Ben's angle was different. He was freelancing as a video editor and had recently been stiffed by a client. He wanted a tool that was dead simple, Pick a template, customize the clauses, and boom, send it for signature. No frills, no project management fluff. I laughed and said, why not? Let's build a prototype. We spent 3 weekends putting it together. I handled the UI/UX and frontend, then wrote some simple Python backend logic with Flask, and we hosted it on Heroku. We called it Contractly, very original, I know. We launched it on Product Hunt with zero expectations. The post barely cracked the top 20, but by the end of the week, we had about 1,000 signups. Most were free users, but 78 of them opted for the $7 per month pro plan. That was the holy shit moment. We reinvested the first month's revenue into Google Ads just to see what would happen. Surprisingly, we saw a 3.2x RAS. We kept doubling down. I scaled back to 3 days a week at my job, then went full-time. Within 4 months, we had 3,500 paying users. Revenue climbed fast. We added features based on direct user feedback, recurring invoices, late payment reminders, even a simple dashboard. Our users were mostly freelancers, gig workers, small agencies, the kind of people who'd been burned by clients and just wanted a tool that worked. By month 9, we hit $70,000 MRR. I quit my job. We hired our first developer. I felt like I was living in a dream. It wasn't just about the money, it was the independence. I could work at 2 a.m. or take a Tuesday off to go hiking. My mental health improved. My creativity exploded. For the first time, I felt like I was doing something that mattered. But here's where the story turns. We started getting attention. A few Twitter influencers posted about us. We got a shout out in a freelancers union newsletter. A freemium competitor launched and aggressively copied our UI. We felt the pressure. So we did what a lot of dumb startups do when they get some success. We started expanding too fast. We added features no one asked for. Time tracking, project boards, CRM integrations. We stretched our dev team thin. Our customer support suffered. Our churn crept up to 8%, then 10%. NPS dropped. We ignored it. They'll come back, we said. Spoiler, they didn't. Then came the infrastructure fail. One of our contractors accidentally pushed untested code to production. It broke our email signature feature and corrupted some contract data. Users panicked. We issued apologies. Some left anyway. We offered discounts. Free months. Anything to stop the bleeding. But the real nail in the coffin was when we got a letter, an actual, physical letter, from a small law firm in New York. It said Contractly was too close a name to their registered service, Contractly, and they were pursuing a cease and desist. We consulted a lawyer. It wasn't worth the fight. We had to rebrand. So we scrambled, brainstormed 300 names, ended up with Formbase because all our contracts were basically templated forms. We lost SEO juice, confused users. And during that mess, Ben got burned out. Like, really burned out. He said he needed a break, just a month off. He never came back. Suddenly, I was solo, running a 5-person startup that was leaking money, customers, and credibility. I started taking on contract UX work again just to make payroll. For a while, I hated everything. The hustle, the late nights, the support tickets, the tax forms. I started fantasizing about going back to a 9-to-5. But one night, around 2 a.m., I got an email from a user named Andre. He wrote, "Just wanted to say thank you. Your platform saved my ass. I used your contract last month and finally got paid after 6 weeks of chasing. You have no idea how much that means." I stared at that email for like 10 minutes. I started digging through our support inbox. There were more emails like that. A photographer in Toronto, a marketing consultant in Brazil, a voice actor in Kansas City, all saying the same thing. This simple tool helped them protect their time and money. That's when I realized we lost our way. We forgot the core of the product. So I killed every non-core feature, dropped time tracking, CRM tools, even removed the project dashboard. I wrote a raw blog post explaining everything, the name change, the burnout, the mistakes. I invited users to be part of a new product direction. And it worked. Over the next 6 months, churn dropped to 4.2%. MRR stabilized around $42,000. I hired a new co-founder, not Ben, but someone who'd been an early user and helped out in our Slack community. We relaunched under a new brand, **Forma***. Simpler, clearer, focused only on contracts and payments. Today, Forma's doing about $55,000 per month. Not as flashy as before, but it's sustainable. And I actually like what I do again. If I had to summarize what I learned, focus on who you're helping and why. Everything else, features, growth hacks, branding, even revenue, is secondary. Also, for the love of God, check for trademark conflicts before you launch. About 3 years ago, I accidentally stumbled into a business that now makes just over $480,000 a year in net profit, with only 3 employees and no office. The weirdest part? It all started with an argument over a broken French press. Back in 2021, I was managing social media for a few clients while trying to make rent in a shoebox apartment in San Diego. My main client was a boutique coffee roaster who kept complaining about how many bad reviews they were getting, not because of their beans, but because their branded French presses were breaking during shipping. I told him, half-jokingly, that maybe he should stop selling cheap French presses. He snapped back that he'd love to, but he couldn't find a reliable supplier that wouldn't destroy his margins. I'd done some light importing years earlier, mostly junk off Alibaba to flip on eBay in college, so I offered to help him source a better French press. He said, "If you can find one that won't break, I'll buy 500 tomorrow." Challenge accepted. I spent the next week deep diving into every manufacturer I could find in China and Vietnam. Most offered the same glass models with minimal padding. But then I came across this small Vietnamese supplier that made these double-walled stainless steel French presses. They were tank-level durable, had a sleek matte black design, and came individually boxed in eco-friendly packaging. I ordered 5 samples, dropped one from my second-floor balcony, and it survived with only a scratch. I pitched it to my client, and he was hooked. He ordered 500, and I coordinated everything: the branding, logistics, customs, and shipping. For my time, I charged a 15% markup. That first order made me about $1,200. It wasn't life-changing, but something clicked. What if I turned this into something? I bought a small batch of 100 units myself, white-labeled them with a generic Mountain Grind Company brand I whipped up overnight, and built a Shopify store in a weekend. I took a few aesthetic product shots on my kitchen counter and ran $300 in Instagram and Facebook ads targeting coffee lovers, campers, and minimalists. The first week, I sold out. The second batch was 500 units, then 1,000. Each time, they sold faster. I quit freelancing a month later. It took about 5 months before I really locked in my audience. What I realized was, the French press wasn't the product, it was the feeling. The brand was outdoorsy, self-reliant, minimalist. I leaned hard into that vibe, even though I hadn't gone camping in 5 years. I hired a part-time content creator who lived out of a van, real story, and he started producing gorgeous content for our social channels, morning brews on mountain cliffs, slow pour shots at forest campsites, etc. The engagement exploded. Our first viral TikTok, a 12-second video of the press brewing coffee on a campfire, set to Bon Iver, brought in $27,000 in sales over 3 days. I had to shut the store down for 2 weeks because we ran out of inventory. By year 2, we were doing $85,000 per month. Our ad spend was about $18,000 per month, COGS hovered around 30%, and we fulfilled out of a third-party warehouse in Utah. I brought in my younger sister, who had just left a corporate job in HR, to manage operations. She now runs all fulfillment, customer support, and logistics. Our only other hire is a freelance videographer who basically lives to travel and shoot content. Now to the business side. Revenue breakdown, 2024 numbers. Total revenue, $1.2 million. Ad spend, $230,000. COGS plus fulfillment, $310,000. Salaries, including mine, $120,000. Net profit, $480K. We don't do Amazon. Not because I hate Amazon, but because our margins are strongest DTC, and I don't want to play the race to the bottom game. I've had people try to white label our product and undercut us on price, but they can't replicate the community or the brand. We aren't just selling a French press. We're selling the morning ritual, the moment of quiet, the feeling of being off-grid and grounded. What's wild is that it started from a single complaint about cheap glass breaking. So yeah, I sell a $59 stainless steel coffee maker with probably a 5,000% markup over raw materials, and people love it. We get emails from customers saying it changed their morning routine. One guy even proposed to his girlfriend with it hidden in the box. Don't ask me why. If you're thinking of starting something, don't overthink the product. Start with a person, a real person. Find their problem. Solve it better than the lazy competitors. Wrap it in a vibe. And don't be afraid to charge premium if it's good. Now we're testing new products, a rugged travel mug, a portable grinder, even an enamel kettle with a temp gauge built-in, all under the same Morning Outdoors brand. We're in no rush to scale, just trying to grow sustainably and keep it fun. 3 years ago, I was scrounging freelance gigs. Today, I take long walks in the morning and drink coffee from a product I accidentally build a life around. Not bad for a broken French press. I started my first business when I was 9 years old, and it was selling pencils I stole from the school supply closet. Not proud of that, but it laid the groundwork. I got caught, of course. Got suspended. But I remember two things: how excited I was when I made a quarter off a Snoopy pencil, and how much I hated the feeling of failure. Fast forward to 28. I was neck-deep in a job I hated, working for a mid-sized tech company doing UI design. It paid decently, benefits were fine, and the people were all right, but I felt like I was drowning in meetings, revisions, and the slow death of my own creativity. I'd spend hours refining drop shadows and padding like it mattered to the world. The itch came back. I did side hustles over the years, selling vintage clothes on eBay, a brief and terrible career drop shipping sunglasses, a YouTube channel that never got past 300 subs, but nothing stuck. Nothing hit. Then came the sandwich. One day, I brought in a homemade smoked turkey sandwich with jalapeno aioli and a balsamic onion spread. It was leftovers from a weekend project I did, trying to recreate my favorite bistro sandwich from a place that had closed during the pandemic. I shared half with a coworker, and they lost their mind over it. 2 days later, someone Venmo'd me $7 and asked, "Can I get one of those turkey jalapeno ones on Friday?" I laughed. Then I said yes. That Friday, I made 4 sandwiches, wrapped them up in butcher paper, wrote little notes on each one for fun, and delivered them in a tote bag at lunch. It felt illegal and weird, but I made $28. People posted it on Instagram. The next week, I had 12 pre-orders. This became a thing. I called it desk lunch. Literally just homemade gourmet sandwiches made in my apartment and delivered around downtown. I had no licenses, no certifications, just a food handler's permit from a bartending gig I had years ago and a kitchen I deep cleaned every day before prep. I'd make all the sandwiches in the morning and deliver them in a beat-up bike messenger bag during my lunch hour. The menu changed weekly. I kept it super simple: 1 meat, 1 veggie, 1 wild card. I'd post the options on a Google form and collect Venmo payments up front. No refunds. No customization. Within 3 months, I had a waiting list. By month 5, I was making more off sandwiches than I was at my full-time job. I took the risk and quit. My boss actually tried to talk me out of it. He said something like, "You're going to give up your career for sandwiches?" I just smiled and said, "Yeah, but they're really good sandwiches." I rented a small commercial kitchen in the back of a now-defunct bakery. I hired a delivery guy, this punk rock college kid named Mateo, who always smelled like pine tar soap and rode a single speed like his life depended on it. Then I hired another, and another. I had to cap orders at 75 per day just to keep up. Everything exploded during month 7, when some food blogger wrote about us. The post was titled *, the sandwich guide changing downtown lunch culture one bite at a time. * corny as hell, but effective. We got 1,400 new followers on Instagram in 24 hours. My inbox became a swamp of catering requests, investor pitches, even a weird collab proposal from a local kombucha brand. This should have been the high point, but it wasn't. I burned out. Fast. I was sleeping maybe 3 hours a night. I had no system for tracking orders besides spreadsheets and sticky notes. I still didn't have a business license because I didn't know which form to fill out. And I was hemorrhaging cash. My rent had gone up. The commercial kitchen lease got more expensive. Deliveries were eating into margins. And I hadn't raised prices once out of fear people would think I was selling out. I was drowning. Again. Then I did something smart. I paused. I shut it down for 2 weeks, posted a note saying desk lunch is on vacation. People were pissed. Whatever. I needed a reset. I met with a friend from college who ran a real catering company. She looked at everything and said, "You've got the heart of a chef but the business sense of a golden retriever." She wasn't wrong. She helped me build a real P&L sheet. Taught me what food cost actually meant. Helped me get set up legally. Then she connected me with a local incubator program for food startups. That's where I met my now co-founder, Lily. Lily was all process. Ex-consultant, operations nerd, obsessed with spreadsheets and logistics. She hated my menu design, loved my aioli, and told me my margins were garbage. We teamed up. She took over the back end, ordering, licensing, taxes, scale planning. I stayed on product, recipes, branding, socials, customer service. Together, we rebuilt Desk Lunch. We moved into a proper shared kitchen space, started weekly catering for 3 offices, launched a website, started charging $11 per sandwich. Still no customizations, still no refunds. But now we had a plan. Within a year, we were delivering 200 sandwiches a day. We hired 6 part-timers, got written up in Eater and the city paper, did a pop-up in a bookstore cafe. We even ran a sandwich building workshop with a local nonprofit teaching job skills to at-risk youth. That was one of the best days of my life. It's been 3 years now. Desk Lunch is now in 3 cities. We have a full-time ops team, our own branded delivery vans, and just signed a deal with a mid-sized co-working company to be their exclusive lunch vendor in 2 locations. We're profitable. I sleep again. I even took a vacation this year. First one in 4 years. And you know what? I still make the turkey jalapeno sandwich every Friday. It's the only item that's never left the menu. I make it myself, personally, because that's the one that started it all. People always ask what my secret was. Was it the marketing? The aesthetic? The scarcity model? Nah, it was just a damn good sandwich. The first time I realized I was an entrepreneur wasn't when I landed my first big deal or when I made my first major profit. It was when I was sitting in my tiny 1-bedroom apartment, surrounded by piles of crumpled paper, empty coffee cups, and a growing sense of desperation. I had just turned 28, and the tech startup I had been working on for the past year was on the verge of collapse. I had maxed out my credit cards, borrowed money from friends, and even sold my car to keep the company afloat. Every day felt like a battle I was losing. But here's the thing no one tells you about entrepreneurship. The hardest moments often come right before a breakthrough. It all started a couple of years before that chaotic night. I had always been passionate about tech. I remember the first time I built a website, nothing fancy, just a simple page for a local business. But the thrill of creating something from nothing was enough to set my mind on fire. After graduating from college with a degree in computer science, I bounced around various jobs in the tech industry, trying to find something that truly excited me. But it wasn't until I joined a small, scrappy startup that I realized where my real passion lay, building my own business. At first, it seemed like a crazy idea. Who was I, a 24-year-old with no business experience, to start a company? But over the next few months, I couldn't shake the thought. Every time I came across a problem in my work, whether it was a process that could be improved or a product that could be enhanced, I would find myself thinking, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that's when it hit me. If I wasn't going to see the kind of innovation I was looking for in the companies I worked for, I would have to create it myself. I spent the next year obsessing over a single idea, a cloud-based platform that could simplify data storage for small businesses. It wasn't a revolutionary concept. There were already established players in the space, but I believed that by focusing on user experience and making the platform affordable, I could carve out a niche. I worked late into the night, learning about everything from server architecture to marketing strategies. I built the product myself, iterating as I went along. The code was messy, the design was basic, but I had a working prototype. After countless failed pitches and frustrating meetings with potential investors, I managed to scrape together enough seed funding from a few friends and family members. The real challenge began when I officially launched the company. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of starting something new, but once you're in the thick of it, you quickly realize that running a business is more than just a cool idea. It's about surviving long enough to see the idea come to life. My early days as an entrepreneur were a blur of 18-hour workdays, constant rejection, and self-doubt. I struggled with marketing, sales, and customer support, 3 things I had never considered when I first dreamed up my business. But through sheer perseverance, I started to see small wins. A few early customers signed on, and I began to see some traction. I remember the first time a customer paid for a subscription. It felt like the validation I had been waiting for. The business was alive. But just as things started to look up, disaster struck. My server crashed, taking down the entire platform for over 48 hours. We lost customers, my investors were breathing down my neck, and I was in full panic mode. I felt like everything I had worked for was crumbling in front of my eyes. There were moments during those 48 hours when I thought about throwing in the towel. But then, I remembered why I started this journey in the first place. I wasn't just building a company, I was building a legacy. It wasn't about avoiding failure, it was about how you bounce back when things go wrong. When the platform was finally up and running again, I made a promise to myself. I would never let a failure define my business. I would learn from every mistake and keep pushing forward. The next few months were tough, but with a renewed focus, we began to refine our product. I hired a small team of developers and customer support staff, each of whom believed in the vision. Slowly but surely, we turned things around. The next year, our user base doubled, and we secured a second round of funding from a venture capital firm. It felt like everything was finally falling into place. But even then, I realized that entrepreneurship isn't about the wins, it's about the grind. No matter how successful you get, there will always be new challenges to face. One of the hardest lessons I learned in those early years was how to deal with uncertainty. I never knew what tomorrow would bring, whether it was a new competitor, a financial setback, or a customer complaint that would send me into a spiral of panic. But as the company grew, I learned to embrace that uncertainty. In fact, I began to see it as a source of excitement rather than fear. By the time I turned 30, my company had grown from a one-person operation to a thriving team of 15. We had landed major clients, expanded our product offerings, and even started turning a profit. But the most rewarding part of it all wasn't the success, it was the journey. Every obstacle, every failure, and every late night had taught me something valuable. A few years after that, we were acquired by a much larger company in a deal that made me a millionaire. It was a surreal moment, standing in the conference room with my new partners, signing papers, and realizing that I had done it. But even then, I knew that the real success wasn't in the acquisition, it was in the fact that I had created something from nothing, something that had a real impact on people's lives. And in that moment, I realized that the true essence of entrepreneurship isn't about the destination, it's about the process of building, learning, and growing, no matter how hard the road gets. Looking back now, I can hardly believe how far I've come. There were moments when I thought I would fail, moments when I doubted myself, and moments when I just wanted to quit. But I kept going. And I'm proud of that. To anyone out there who's thinking about starting a business, it's going to be harder than you ever imagined. You'll face more rejection than you ever thought possible. But if you keep pushing, if you keep learning, and if you never lose sight of why you started, you'll make it. You might not see the success right away, and it might not look how you expected it to look. But one day, you'll look back and realize that every hardship, every struggle, and every late night was worth it. Because that's what entrepreneurship is, a journey, not a destination. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.